People who take walks at night, what's the scariest thing you've seen? I once saw tiny hands reaching out of a sewer grate. Took me a minute before I realized it was a raccoon.
I saw a tarantula use a crosswalk as if it was a law-abiding pedestrian.
Was up on a hill in the countryside at midnight when a man with a rifle came out of nowhere, ran right past me, and wasn't seen again. I went home shortly after that.
A 7-feet-tall male brown kangaroo in the middle of the footpath. Buff as beep, just staring me down. You bet your ass I turned and went the other way. He just went about his business.
Iguana fell out of a tree on an unseasonably cool night.
Another person walking at night.
Living in a rural village, I was taking a late night walk with my GF, when suddenly we hear aloud what we thought was a human scream. Turned out it was a sheep. Jump scared us hard though.
2 deer fighting, then yelling at each other, then having sex.
Seeing is scary, but hearing and not seeing is beep terrifying.
A man on a bike passed me and he wore a jacket, shoes, and a hat, but no pants or underwear. At first I couldn't believe that I just saw his bare ass. Edit, typo?
A gigantic mother moose and her baby about 30 yards away.
Dead body on the side of the street with a sign around its neck saying I'm a cell phone thief, don't be like me. This was maybe 20 years ago in Manila, Philippines.
Almost 100% sure I witnessed a kidnapping. I was going to get my mail late at night while living in an apartment complex, and on the way back I noticed a woman in her pajamas surrounded by a few men right by a car. There was an argument and looked like they forced her in the car and drove off. I found her slipper nearby on the grass. I of course called the police and they came, and I let them know what I saw, but I never found out what actually happened.
What I thought was a body in the woods, and after a bit of back and forth on the phone with the police, I returned with a few helpful coppers to find a slightly miffed drunk person who'd had an argument with his missus.
I live out in the country, more woods and fields around me than houses. There are several dirt paths through the woods that farmers use for their tractors and all during the day. I like to run on these paths because it's usually quiet and no traffic, unlike the road. During the hottest part of the summer I run at night because it's cooler outside. So one night, it had rained during the day, so all the tracks on the path were gone. I was out running around midnight. I had an uneasy feeling but didn't see anything. But then I circled around, and on my second pass down a particular way, I saw my footprints, but then I saw another set of prints, bigger than mine, that hadn't been there before. Then I saw they made the turn the same way I had earlier. I cut it short that night, never saw anyone, but still. Wow, I did not expect all this lol. Thanks for the awards.
Found a guy who hung himself in a park. Called 911 and answered some questions. Was a long night.
One time I turned around to see what was behind me just out of intuition. And I saw someone step behind a tree rather quickly and try to hide from me. I stood there for a second to confirm this. Then I speed walked home. Beep, creepy.
A bear right up the street. Or, maybe, an empty baby carriage on the side of the road.
I live in a country town, and I'm male, so I feel reasonably safe taking a nighttime or early morning, before sunrise, walk. If I see someone else we might say good morning/evening as we pass. Never had any reason to be afraid. But one early morning I saw someone come stalking out of the trees as I walked past. It was pretty dark, so I couldn't really see much except for an outline, but I had full-on spidey sense get the beep out of here feeling, so I just bolted. No idea if I was actually in danger, but you gotta trust your gut on these things.
A couple years ago, I was at the start of a typical weekday night stroll. I was living in an apartment complex in Florida at the time, so it was the only opportune time to do so, without being completely drenched. The exact moment I was crossing the sidewalk adjacent to the entrance of said complex, I witnessed a middle-aged dude punch his wife/significant other in her face, in full view of me, and another passerby. The passerby called the cops. The dude was arrested. It wasn't a scary situation to my own well-being, but I did find the situation chilling. For one, how nonchalant the guy was in assaulting his wife/so in public, and two, how both the abuser/so were pleading for the cops not to be called. It was domestic abuse so normalized, it happened in full public, without any second thought/rationale.
I was walking around Bangalore, India at night by myself. I was a 20-year-old American girl on study abroad. All of a sudden, I saw a giant rat climb out from a sewer. It was bigger than I knew rats could even be. Bigger than the biggest rat depicted in movies or books. It was about the size of a small dog. I was shook. Then, out from the same sewer grate, another gigantic rat. And another. And another. About 5 or 6 dirty rats were all climbing out of the same sewer, and I was about to have to face them all on my own. I was terrified and I knew no one would ever believe me, but there was no way to get away from them or change direction. So, I pull out my phone to try and use the flashlight to scare them off. I direct the light at them and every single one looked right at me. They're dark and dirty and now they were running directly at me. But wait, I was wrong. Puppies. They weren't rats at all but a whole litter of dirty puppies that had been hiding in the sewer together. Still gross but also way cuter and less scary than expected. WTF India.
Seen someone overdose, odd, on the sidewalk, not a pleasant birthday memory.
Live in Tucson, Arizona outside of city limits. The houses are set very far apart, and the land is undeveloped, cacti, brush, trees, with a beautiful view of the mountains. I'd walk my dog Pork Chop in a 2.5-mile square, and the middle was especially undeveloped. We'd often see wildlife like coyotes and javelina. Pork Chop was 70 pounds, so I didn't feel unsafe. Coyotes aren't dangerous to humans. On this night, I waited until midnight to walk Pork Chop. There aren't street lights in my neighborhood. I didn't take my phone because you could see okay with the moonlight. When I turned down this road along the most undeveloped portion, I froze. About 30 feet in front of me, I see something walking towards me in the shadows. It looked big. Were my eyes playing tricks on me? Pork Chop starts wagging her tail. She sees it too. It's too tall to be a coyote, and it's sleek, so not roundish like a javelina. My blood ran cold. I've heard that expression, but it was the first and only time I've experienced that sensation. It was slinking towards us in the distinctive walk of a cat. My first instinct was to run, but I slowly backed away to avoid setting off its chase instinct. It was terrifying. I didn't know what I was seeing, other than it looked really big. I felt so vulnerable. I didn't have my phone. There aren't easy houses to run to. It was super late. A few days later, another dog walker told me a mountain lion had been spotted in that area. Read up on them. They can get up to 220 pounds, and you're not supposed to run because that sets off their chase instinct. Usually they stalk their prey and attack the back of their necks. If they show themselves to you, they're trying to decide if you're too big to attack. I never walked down that road again. I'm still terrified thinking about. I hate seeing videos or pictures of them. Within a year of my encounter, 2 mountain bikers were attacked by a mountain lion in Washington state. One was killed. So scary.
Many years ago, my boyfriend and I decided to take a late-night walk around his generally safe neighborhood. We got a few steps past the driveway when a shirtless guy came running over with a hammer in one hand, and a machete in the other. My boyfriend stayed super calm and asked the man what was going on. Apparently, some man had just broken into his apartment and tried to kidnap his young daughter, so he was chasing him down to either shatter his fingers with the hammer or chop off his hands entirely with the machete, and he thought my boyfriend was possibly this man. My boyfriend gave me his car keys and told me to take myself home. We lived apart at the time, so I went and got his car, and by the time I was backing out of the driveway, the man was screaming at my boyfriend, who was just standing there calmly with his hands in the air. I drove a block away so the man wouldn't see me, rolled the windows down to try to hear what was happening, and called the cops. The machete man ended up running off and I don't know if they ever got him. My boyfriend was fine though, thank God. Edit typo.
The street I walked down where once there was a cat killer on that street who cut off a cat head and placed it there.
I tried an electric bike my aunt had while we were visiting. I wasn't used to how abruptly it would accelerate, so when it did, I yelled for a second. My cousin was taking a video of me the whole time because I most probably would have done something to make an absolute fool out of myself, like crashing, and it would have been hilarious. So there I was, riding to the end of the street and turning back around when I noticed a lot of men holding large rocks in their hands, barefoot, came by as if they're hunting someone down. We were then told to come inside immediately as someone had just taken a machete and started attacking people at a party just around the corner where we were having a party. Later that night, we replayed the video and we noticed that when the bike accelerated and I yelled, a man walking in front of me was holding a machete. He startledly whipped around and glanced at me. We're glad he didn't swing the machete. He was so close he wouldn't have missed. He matched the description of the man who hacked random and multiple people that day.
Was out for a late walk in the rain. Always enjoy it because it's peaceful, smells great, quiet and never see anyone. Walked off this trail back into the road and saw a big pile of garbage under a tarp at the end of the cul-de-sac the trail ends in. Got a creepy chill like, that could be a dead body or something and I'd never know. Just got a weird feeling that snapped me out of my calm walk. Picked up the pace. About 500 YDS away parked car with a guy sitting there, in the dark, in the rain, like 11 mish car off, just sitting there. Got super creeped out at this point and changed my route back to the main road and hurried home. Turns out it was a dead body someone had dumped under that tarp, was under there for 4 days before someone investigated it. The guy in the car turned out to be just a random dude, guy lives there and totally unrelated to the body. Still, took a few months off from my late night walks alone in the woods.
Close to Halloween, I went on a walk with a family member and a bunch of kids were gathered outside their houses with Halloween masks just staring at people walking by.
An old man who walked very aggressively. Like Jason from Friday the 13th but sped up. I was ready to run but I walked past him and nothing happened. Put me on my toes but holy beep, change your walking form, man.
A possum. He hissed at me.
May your day be filled with joy and happiness. And please remember to subscribe to Upvote for the best quality content every day.